Hello, Aisha. How are you?
Good. It's a good day in Melbourne today.
Yes, it's a beautiful day.
So I think this is a wonderful opportunity for me to interview you and get your insights on um, Australian education and STEM scenario in here. So you have had a wonderful, long, career and have had experience and have contributed a lot in the field. So I think it will be helpful for a lot of teachers to know and for a lot of educators to know the initiatives in Australia, what you have been part of, and how can they adapt it. So let's start with first question. Um, so there are government initiatives like Science Week, National Science Week, and high school extension program where school children take part in a long proper projects. So, do you think that such initiatives play a crucial role in shaping education? And how do you think some of the specific initiatives have helped, your school and the students that you have seen?
Very important question. Everyone in the education field, internationally and nationally here, um, at state level, at school level, everyone is trying to develop the STEM or STEAM workforce and STEM skills basically. And there are lots of initiatives which some of which you mentioned. But there are quite a number more. And we have, uh, right from the beginning, in terms of, if you look at research in that area, as a continuation research, there is a fantastic thing that Professor Lisa Harvey Smith has started as the Women STEM Ambassador, and which is a STEM equity monitor, which gives us a really good glance into what is happening currently on a yearly, annual kind of basis. And there are some things that she has really worked hard for. But apart from what you just mentioned, there are a couple more that um, have helped me as well as helped us as educators in many schools. Is a CSRO, STEM professionals in schools. That's a really good initiative. It's on a national level, and what it does is basically get STEM or professionals who are in industry, who are in academia, to directly connect with teachers and bring their expertise to schools. This is very, very important, and it it has opened doors for me in the past, in terms of developing STEM programs at my school, um, and continues to do so. The other few things that are at local levels, or let me talk about the national first. So the National Science Youth Forum is another great initiative, which allows students, selected students, to go and be in or mentored by scientists in face-to-face environments, and get to different labs, go to research organizations, and that really opens their mind to what are the possibilities. On a state level, I think we have enormous ecosystem here in Victoria. Every single university has got an outreach program and are keen to develop those partnerships with schools, in different ways, in different programs that they offer. We have teacher professional bodies such as the I'm a part of two, the Science Teachers Association and also the Design and Technology Teachers Association, but there are other professional bodies as well. Um, we have many, many competitions that run statewide, such as the Science Talent Search. It has been running for many, many years, I think. I think more than 70 years, I think. And it has really, that is one of the most important ones if teachers and educators want to start a STEM program at their school. Um, there are other competitions, and as I said, just like every university, every organization, whether it is Microsoft or Google, any of these tech organizations, and even engineering organizations, are keen and offer many such programs where students can collaborate with them. We have the Engineers Without Borders that does a remarkable work in this space. Um, we have, as I said, many different organizations. We have work experience programs that are offered. All of these are, again, as I said, network points that
Yeah.
if we connect them, we do see a very uh, direct and rich experience that students can get in schools, really.
Definitely, a collaboration between schools, industry, and university are really important. So, few of the projects that you remember distinctively and that stayed with you, like out of these collaborations, few of students' projects that were noteworthy and maybe helped them achieve something in their
Um,
life.
there are lots of all student programs are really interesting, really, because it shows a glimpse into their way of thinking, and especially if it is a student any led program that they have come up.
Mm,
But I will mention couple. One
mm,
is a great initiative currently done by Swinburne University in this Swinburne Space Youth Program. It's been running for about 3 years now,
mm,
and it has Dr. Sarah Webb has done a really great job in promoting it. Um, and she has, I mean, there's a whole team behind it, but um, I think this particular program has captured the imagination of at least students in my school, because they see space is a new frontier in Australia,
yeah, yeah,
and developing a project that can go onto the International Space Station as an experiment is really something that is remarkable. And we were able to get two student teams to party. I mean, over the years, we have done about four, and they have been, one of them has been really successful in sending something to the space station. It was a select.
wow. That's
So
amazing.
successful in pitching for an idea and then
Mm,
got to be the lead in the experiment that was sent. Um, but apart from that, the other ones that, as I mentioned earlier, which was the Engineers Without Borders, which was done through Uni Melbourne as well. And this was really something that the students um, took on. They were so engrossed in it that they came during weekends
mm,
to work on it
mhm,
on their own, uh, work through the whole program. And it was remarkable. It was something that captures the imagination of students so vividly. Um, the other few things that come to my mind as a student project is I teach a subject called systems engineering and at VC, and one of the couple of students who have made it to the top designs, their projects were remarkable as well. And but there were a couple others whose projects did not make to the top decision, but they were also very interesting and and I tend to learn out of these projects myself. So I'm much as a learner as they are, and so it really is very interesting for me.
do you think to attract students, the use of soft power and media today, especially, a little glamour could be added to STEM and made it like STEAM with arts to attract more students and especially more girls?
I think you have absolutely um, hit the nail. It is so important. Right now, we live in a media run society pretty much. And if it is not there in front of people, it is not important,
Mm.
really.
Yeah.
And that is how we perceive, our society perceives it. So yes, it is important for all of us to make that effort in creating that awareness, in making it, as you said, the glamorous to be in a STEAM field, and become um, really, the soft power that you mentioned is very, very critical, because um, we are all on social media in different forms. Um, uh, the biggest success story, I think, is the TikTok,
Ah.
where in 10 seconds you are able to convey a message effectively and imprint that message. So people see the message and remember that message. So it's a 10-second pitch, really, that
Mm.
we are creating. And if you are able to do that, then at least the first step in bringing out these careers, or bringing out this information, bringing out the glamorous part of it, can we can address that, and then maybe we create interest in the whole thing, where then students can then go and look for this, or discover their passions, or try to connect to someone who can help them further.
Yeah.
But
So your STEM labs, which run during your lunchtime and are pretty famous among students. So for example, the projects that we do in STEM and how we run these labs, could we add a little different aspect to it and a little more artful aspect to it?
girls or female identifying non-binary students, they need a little more exclusive, safe space to first get over their inhibitions, and you know explore it on their own terms. So we have created one day for female identifying non-binary students, and one day for male identifying non-binary students. And um, uh, the rest of the days we have kept it as pretty much open for general, everyone can come,
Mm.
whoever can come. So it's an experiment that we want to see how we go about it. When again, it's not that girls don't come. We have
Mm.
had lots of girls take part in lots of competitions, and our number of girls have who are taking now technology and engineering subjects,
Mm.
or pathways into university. They need not necessarily not take the subjects at school, but they definitely are choosing those pathways at universities, has gone up um, almost 40%.
Oh, okay.
Uh, so they may not engage in the STEAM club on a
Hmm.
daily basis,
Hmm.
but they do engage it. If, like, for example, if I give, we promote a competition,
Hmm.
we do get girls participating
Hmm.
in it.
Hmm.
However, they do not come to the STEAM club to do their projects.
Ah.
And that is why
Hmm.
we want to create that safe space. And
Hmm.
and these are selected girls who have overcome that inhibition
Hmm.
over my constant nagging, probably
Yeah, yeah.
explore, and then I've gone into it. But we want to make it accessible to lot many girls on their own, taking that
Hmm.
initiative and saying, I can try that, or this is,
Yeah.
I can go there. My
Hmm.
And that is the something that we really want to see, because Right now, we are seeing that balance not being there, especially, and that is
Mm.
reflected in the current STEM equity monitor results nationally as
Yeah.
well.
So with there are a couple of factors there, like parental influence in students' careers and also the peer pressure at that certain age, where maybe thinking and questioning is not like really valued for um, a certain area of population. As in, for some people, it's not as appreciated as others. So, as a teacher, how do you make sure, or in your school, how do you promote this kind of questioning? And what do you think that if, um, if like with the STEM skills, if girls or a lot more students are not equipped with it, how will it affect the society? And what can you share few of the techniques that you use to make sure that they question and that they have these critical thinking skills?
Um, Again, a really good question. How do girls, or there are a couple of things that you mentioned in that questionnaire: parental influence, peer pressure, um, and societal influences. I think the biggest factor, more than peer pressure at times, I've seen, is of parental guidance.
Mm.
And so again, and you connected it to girls, and so I'm going to connect my answer to girls in that
Yeah.
space as well. But I'll talk about all students
Mm.
as well. So generally, when there is a choice to be made, it is definitely, and all of us have done that, we rely on our parents to guide us. And what has happened is that the traditional education or the traditional career paths have changed so drastically and so
Mm.
quickly that
Mm.
parents themselves are not sure of where this future of work is going.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that they then fall back into what is their comfort zone
Mm.
and say, okay, these are some things that you can definitely do, and this is a very known path and trusted path. But at the same time, they are also becoming aware that things are changing. And I think it is very, very important for all of us to do is to develop these dialogues with parents and give them an opportunity to connect with experts and talk to them and ask these relevant, very important questions. Because this is also of an a conversation that will be shared internationally, I'm hoping. Um, I'm going to highlight a couple of things that are happening in India currently. So there is an initiative which is the first of its kind. It's a parent conclave that has been planned on the 8th of September this year in Mumbai, where exactly this is being discussed.
Mm.
And if you have an audience who can connect to that, that will be great. Uh, but we need to do that more and more because ultimately, as a society, if we don't have enough number of people doing these new emerging technologies, uh, jobs in these fields, or using these things,
Mm.
then we are going to be at a disadvantage, really.
Yeah.
And taken there will be people who will be doing it, but uh, I'll bring that answer back to your second part of your question, which is to do with girls in this space. um, 50% of a society, if it is not ready, uh,
Yeah.
and workforce, that's a tremendous economic, not only economic but societal implications to that.
Mm.
Even now, most students, every student, in at least in Victoria, and I'm sure in Australia, have got a digital device.
Yeah.
Um, However, the way most students, and I'm going to say most students, irrespective of gender, we use it primarily as a replacement for their notebooks
Yeah.
or research, and that's a very important thing as a research tool. But they don't really use it to actively become creators
Mm.
or develop it in terms of creating a change or impact or 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 design new ideas
Mm.
and be able to network with a wide network of peers,
Yeah.
which is easily possible, really. But
Mm.
we tend, and yes, there are limitations with child safety and all of those things, but there are lots of things that can be navigated in a safe space.
Mm.
And I think bringing those opportunities closer to students to use these devices, which are so powerful, um, in a real sense, I think it will open lots of doors and ideas and imagination to students. The other important factor when you talk about girls and not engaging in this process is also the factor that we don't we teach facts,
Mm.
we don't, and fundamentals, and I'm not against doing that at all,
Mm.
but
Actually, that was my next question. That STEM has become all about the knowledge and the subject, and not necessarily do we highlight the skills. So I feel that in this time, even if students are not going to continue their career in STEM fields, they need to know the STEM skills. So yeah, that is exactly I wanted to ask.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely correct. We teach a knowledge, we we want to impart knowledge, but we do it without an impact, or a pathway into impact. What I mean is, if we were to include empathy into it,
Mm.
how can my learning create a change in this world?
Mm.
How, that platform,
Mm.
if it is given, not only it will develop the soft skills, it will students will learn to apply their knowledge, which is not done. The only application, even though we are trying really hard with all those programs that we discussed earlier, but if we were to bring that aspect into the curriculum, where students are given an option, or not an option, but it's embedded into the curriculum, that students then integrate their knowledge of various subjects to create a project
Mm.
that is
Which is
driving change in whether it is locally, globally, wherever
mm.
it is.
Mm.
There are other skills that we are encouraging our society to go into, which is of entrepreneurship.
Mm.
And by doing that, we are teaching them these skills as well,
Mm.
both entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship, really. So you
Mm.
can be within your organization and develop something.
Ah. Okay.
You don't have to start an organization of your own, but you
Mm.
can make changes into your work environment and do it with the skill sets of an entrepreneur.
Mm.
And when we start doing that, we will see our education paradigm completely shift.
Ma'am, there are two ways of doing a project. One is like students come up with the idea and make that project. And another thing is that you have students connected with respective scientist or a person who's working on that kind of a thing, and then students work on their project. So do you think that these kind of collaborations, which are not really popular in India, whatever I've seen, students might be doing their projects, but there is not enough collaboration with the researchers or the people who are, for example, there's a person who's called pond man. So he converts this whole area of trash to a pond and lakes. So I would like to see more of that kind of collaboration with people who are actively doing something, and students get to learn a lot through that. So do you think that kind of collaboration helps?
Course, any collaboration with anyone who is driving change is inspiring. And you learn, and this concept that education only happens in a formal environment has to shift. Um, uh, I think in India, a lot of learning, I think learning and education are,
Yeah,
are a
very
bit
different.
different. You learn all the time. You learn from situations, you learn from experiences, you travel somewhere, you learn something. So I think this focus on um, education as a formal thing,
Hmm.
um, without accepting that learning in other spaces, that is where the friction is happening currently.
Hmm.
And I think if we develop these kind of experiences or offer these kind of pathways to students, then really that is a very rich experience for students. I mean, we do a lot in Australia, in where students can go with their local councils. Do a lot of sustainability programs are run. Because you mentioned the pond, I'm talking about
Yeah,
sustainability,
yeah,
um, and I think we need to include those kind of learning experiences as education in
hmm.
our curriculum or in our schools. So it's not
Hmm.
just curriculum. The other thing is that in India and elsewhere, to be very honest, we are all we need to we need to give credit and acceptance that the process of learning is far more important than the outcomes of learning.
Yes.
And when we do that, I think we will see students far more engaged and
Hmm.
ready to take a risk. Right
Yes.
now, that taking the risk is the biggest problem for students because their whole success definition is attached to the marks that they get in a test.
Yeah.
It is never attached to the process of learning. And
So, as a teacher, what would you want to uh, do with the kids? So, I'm giving you two example of projects. Okay, one is where there is hard output and clear instruction and clear goal, and the another is where students are led with the open-ended and a little guided project where there is chance of failure. So, as a teacher, what have you seen so far? Where do students engage the most and where do they learn the most?
the learning and both of this
Hmm.
learning happens, as I said, in everything.
Hmm.
But we need to see what kind of learning happens.
Hmm.
So in the previous one, that is important too, having giving explicit guidelines. So for a student who has never done an open-ended project ever,
Hmm.
giving them that scaffolding and saying, this is how you run a project,
Hmm.
you know, and telling them, so what could be done a little bit differently, even with the explicit guidelines, is explaining why these guidelines are there.
Hmm.
What is the purpose of doing this?
Yes.
Once you explain the purpose of it, then that is the real learning, really. Because
Hmm.
now that student can probably create a similar project that is, as you said, open ended
Yeah.
and know the steps of doing it.
Hmm.
But if you just say, all right, go and build something,
Hmm.
there is a, it might happen, but it will not. The the amount of time and the process, and it is the time taken in navigating the process on their own
Hmm.
might itself become overwhelming for that child.
Yes. So
And
there is a level of scaffolding that happens looking at the child and their previous experiences.
right. And
Hmm.
you can see that in a classroom, if you talk about anything, you will have some students who are immediately taking on the leadership there, or know what they're doing.
Yes.
Students who have never done it before wait for every instruction.
Hmm.
And that is fine because they are not ready to be taking on that leadership. But you can see the difference. A student who has done a project like that knows
Hmm.
what to do and how to take on independence, responsibility in leading
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
So both of them are important. You have to demonstrate what it is, how to run a project by
Hmm.
doing a project with the students.
Yes.
And as I said,
So,
explaining why these steps are important.
yes. So, like looking at individual students and these kind of personalized learning could not maybe happen 10 years ago or few months ago, until now when chat gpt and ai tools have arrived and we all think that education goals are going to change. What do you think is going to be the purpose of education and the method uh, now in this time?
Um, I think purpose of education has never changed.
Hmm.
Humans, what are all for that matter, I will go with our species. Humans are natural learners.
Hmm.
We learn from the time we are born. You know, we are learning. We have a thirst for knowledge. We want to know. There is an inherent curiosity, and that has led us to discovering all these new things. Um, and so the purpose of education, if it is aligns with this curiosity and discovery, then the purpose of education is not going to change. The pedagogy is going to change.
Hmm.
Now, I think what is going to happen is that, and this is again up for debate, really, we are very new with AI and chat gpt. But my concern in using AI and chat gpt is the equity factor.
Okay.
And we are still, this technology is really really new in terms of what it can offer and what it can't offer safely,
Hmm.
and in terms of the biases, for example, in terms of whether it is accessible to everyone in the remotest part of the world,
Hmm.
with how is it open to in all languages,
Yeah.
whether there is enough data sets that can align with the cultural and socioeconomic levels of every community in the world.
Hmm.
But, well, these are the things that we need to work on. But it does offer an option for students, if we are able to make it equitable and accessible, to have a, a learning assistant. It still depends on the questions that you ask ChatGPT.
Haha.
So we need to be able to develop students to be, as I said, that curiosity needs to align and ask specific questions and learn from that. So it should never be, and that's why this terms of reference of success need to change. Because if the student feels, oh, I'm doing this because I want to get good marks in the exam, then it is a failure of this technology, really. It will still
Yeah.
do it, but there is really no learning.
So what kind of skills you think now with ChatGPT students can develop, which they could not before?
I'm still learning, so I
Yeah.
don't think I'm in a position to say all of that, but I can
Huh.
definitely reflect on a few of those.
Hmm.
Um, I think prompt engineering is a big one.
Mhm.
It's one of the new careers that has come up as
Mhm.
prompt engineering, and I've never heard of it. So there you
Mhm.
go.
Mhm.
And basically, it is learning to ask proper questions to get
Mhm.
apt answers. So asking questions is an important skill, and
Yeah.
asking pertinent questions is another is a very important.
Mhm.
How to work with technology,
Mhm.
how to work with the limitations and the scope of technology that is in front of you and be agile about it
Mhm.
is important. This open mindset that, oh, I can learn anything I want
Yeah.
to, and that
Mhm.
is my success, is the single most thing that we will have to do in terms of getting students to that skill is what I think is the most important.
Yeah,
Think
definitely.
that it matters, or it will matter what scores you get or qualifications you have, but it will definitely matter what skills you can demonstrate.
Mm.
Because I can learn now from so many online platforms, which was before ChatGPT as well.
Yeah.
So it is really up to me now how I develop myself
Mm.
and become part of this new technological advancement. And it may not be for anything else. It may not be that I will go and develop it into a career all the time, but it can be something I'm because I want to know, I want to
Yeah.
learn.
Ma'am, when you say that the purpose of education has always been curiosity and this human instinct to learn, I want to ask you that in countries where in high school, which is a very prominent foundational year to build your career, um, people are more focused on the marks in a way that there are countries like India where the competitive exams have become the sole purpose preparing for them as a goal of high school education. Like I was told that, become a scientist after you pass your high school. So don't ask questions in high school. So what do you think? How does that damage in a way? And can uh, purpose be just to pass those tests when the cutoff percentage is 1%, let's say for IITs? uh, are we preparing the whole population to just, are we killing their innovation in a way by telling them that you are not in this 1%?
Yes, definitely. Um, what see this kind of education that we have currently was okay for the 20th century, to be very honest, and middle part of the 21st. But how are we justifying that a person who gets 1% less, as you said, is not capable of innovation or is not capable of learning or not capable of being in that space? I think there are some real questions that we all have to answer. um, there is also the question of how do we decide who is in that
Yeah.
who's going to be in that space, or who is eligible to be in that space.
Yeah.
Because this was basically exams, and all of those are basically a kind of a filtration system.
Hmm.
But you're right, in what that leads to is that if you don't make off that cutoff or whatever, you are basically given a message that you're not good enough. And that can have real damaging um, outcomes for that child, as well as on a societal level as well.
Hmm.
But we have enough experiences and examples of people who have not gone to universities and have become really great successes.
Yeah.
So we need to kind of come up with a better system of imparting these skills of high level engineering that IITs and all those great institutions offer. How can we make it a little more accessible to people who have those enterprise skills, who want to learn, who may not be, there are lots of kids who have a fear of exams, and
Hmm.
they may be great in class, but the minute you make them sit in front of an exam, they freeze.
Yeah.
And this happened to me. I have gone through this process, and it's a real thing. And so, does it mean that that person is not capable? Uh,
Hmm.
Just because of this whole exam fear that we
Yeah.
have generated on.
Yeah. A couple of days ago, I interviewed a friend of mine. She's a radio astronomer in Netherlands right now, and she said the same thing when she decided to do a PhD in India. She set for entrance exams for PhD, um, and she got negative marking, and now she's doing wonderful as a researcher abroad. So yeah, who is to judge who is going to be able to make it or not?
The important example in that is that she didn't give up,
Yes,
and she went somewhere, and she didn't think, oh, just because I didn't get it here, that means I'm not good enough. But that happens to a lot of students.
yes.
It leads to great depression and frustration. And a large part of that, especially in cases or countries like India, we have a real problem of population and a number of students who can. And so we
Yeah,
need to come up with some more creative ways where we can make this
yeah,
education and accessible. And it possibly, I feel that technology is the answer to that.
mm,
Why can't we make it such that the entrance exam may
mm.
be a project report written,
Yeah,
um, or a research paper written,
yeah,
that the students are able to use all kinds of things at their means and write it. And you possibly could tell them that you need to kind of do the citations, and you will have to come here and write it if you want to avoid plagiarism and all of those things. But
yeah,
that is something that, and it could be something like a stage thing. So it's not like you sit on one day, you finish that exam, and you finish and do that. It could be something that, like, something that is process driven, a little more staged. And
mm,
so, it doesn't become like, if I'm not feeling well on that day and I have to do an exam, and I can't do it, and you know
mm,
and then that's the end of my career, really.
mm,
It There's a personal story that I can share.
mm.
In my year 10 board exams, I was going, and I met my dad was taking me on his scooter, and I met with an accident,
Oh,
and my right hand was fractured.
oh,
And I said, because this whole exam thing was so important, I said, I can't give up on my exam.
mm,
And I put myself through that pain and pressure, and wrote 7 exams on a fractured hand without a bandage.
mm.
Uh, I don't think that's what is, and
Neither,
actually,
yeah,
it did not result. It was not the best way to do it.
yeah,
So I think we need to really, really think what is the better way? Can we use technology more effectively? And now it is possible to do that. Uh,
Yeah.
and this whole concept of rote learning and only learning directed towards an exam, which happens in India with every student having gone through tuition classes and preparatory sessions and all. And I'm not saying that it's not all, as I said, all learning is important and all
It is,
experiences.
but when this is become a multi-crore business, and when we proudly say that 90,000 applied to IITM and only 30 got in, so that's when it's less about the institution reputation, but it's more about what message are we giving to those thousands of students, and how are we going to motivate them to pursue something of their interest.
And what
Yeah.
happens next to these students?
Yeah.
Where do they go? What happens? And and do they still continue their passion of engineering? Do they get into their careers, or they just take a back seat and
Mm.
become depressed? I mean, I don't know. I haven't really researched into that, but that's I mean, there are so many different ways we can do it now with technology, and
Yeah.
we can develop this so much more.
Yeah, and we talk about India because of the large number of population and our connect, but world over, like wherever we see high school, if it becomes more of a foundation year concept compared to just getting the marks, and because that's a little prevalent everywhere else also, that
Yeah, definitely. In Australia, our year 12 exams are become the focus for
Mm.
teachers
Yeah.
and students and schools, because the success of a school as a society, we have based it on how well the students do on an 8-hour exam.
Mm.
So the pressure is then passed on to the teachers, to the principals, to the students, and also to the parents, because it's seen as this make or break thing.
Yeah.
Having said that, there is a lot of work that has been developed, initiated by so many, including government bodies, to
Mm.
to debunk this and say
Yes.
that this is just one thing in your learning journey.
Yeah,
And a lot of
true.
universities are moving away and encouraging students to have different pathways into there. And I think this is such a healthy way of
Yeah.
looking.
Yes. Thank you, Veena, for a wonderful talk and discussion and sharing your valuable insights.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Aisha, and some really good questions and interesting discussion. I look forward to it being online, and keep up the good work you're doing, and very important work.
Thank you so much.
Take care.